Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please refrain from speaking. The people that are in line to see the family, please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going to begin the funeral service. We welcome those of you who are joining us via live stream. As the people here, please step forward to let the family acknowledge your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Alex Friedman from North Suburban Synagogue, Bethel, will be officiating. I'd like everyone to take a moment. If we could please refrain from speaking. We are going to begin the funeral ceremony. At this time, I invite everyone to please be sure your cellular phones have been turned off. We welcome those of you joining us via live stream. And if I may say this, we're going to begin the service of the mayor of Gidwitz, and probably everywhere else she was, for Aviva Luke. This time I invite the family, those of you who are wearing the ribbon, to please rise as the rabbi approaches to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya, and then we'll begin the ceremony.
How do we begin to tell the story, the life story of a loved one? It would take us too many weeks, too many months, too many years to share all the influence and stories and memories we have of Aviva. And we do our best today. Can you not hear me? Is this mic on? Test, test. Some of us are here who knew her well. No. I'll try that, okay. Some of us are here who knew her well and will be reminded of the very best of Aviva. And other of us didn't have the fortune, the blessing of knowing her, but we are here to support her family, and we are learning of her for the first time. And today we can't share every detail, every story, but we can paint a vivid sketch with bright, bold colors, remembering the best of who she was. And when we're not sure where to begin and how to begin to tell the story of a loved one, we open our scripture for wisdom, guidance, inspiration. And I begin with a selection from Ecclesiastes. From the book of Kohelet. There's a season set for everything a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping, a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. And this moment, this day, this time is the moment to remember, to recall, to share the memories that continue to influence us and guide us if we knew her. And it's the time to offer our love and support and our hugs to her family who are hurting as they miss her this day. We think of her children, Paul and Dina with Alan, and her grandchildren, Zach, Max, and Aiden. I continue by reciting the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai v'ro'i lo achsar, binot esher b'tzeini, amem minuko tina haleni, nafshi yeshavev yancheni b'maglet tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam ki elei pegetz hamavet lo irava, ki atah imadi, shivtecha u'mishantecha, hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch avanai shulchan, neged sorevai, dishanta v'shem en roshi, kosi rivaya, ach tov achesed yudifuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai, le'orech yamim. Let's read the English together. I invite you to take out the funeral folder and open to the second page, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. The Jewish tradition has a special inscription for an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, a woman who exceeds in being a mother, a wife, a grandmother, the pinnacle, a matriarch of a family. And such words are certainly fitting for Aviva. Eshet Chayil miyimtza, v'rachok mipinim yikra, batach ba lebala v'shachar lo yachzar, k'maratu tov v'lova, kol yemei chayecha. Sheker hachen v'hever hayofi, isha yirat Adonai hi tithalau, tenuga mipri yadecha, v'haluha b'shirim asecha. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. Amen. Speaking her praise, we're now going to hear words of tribute and love and recollection from those who knew her the best and loved her the most, her family. I invite forward her children, Paul and Dina.
I wrote a pretty lengthy eulogy, so I'm gonna trim it down a little bit, real fast. Yeah, I will. Okay, just trimming it down. Okay. So I am having a difficult time grasping the concept and accepting that after today, my mom, our mom, their grandmother, will no longer physically be with us. She will only be with us in spirit. Memories of her have pushed my brain into sensory overload, and this tribute to my mom is a quilt of things that I have cut and pasted together. I hope that it helps everyone get a taste of my favorite things about my very special mom. First, I'd like to say that having Aviva Luke, our grandmother, was infinitely more rewarding than winning the most recent $1.5 billion Powerball lottery. And I want to recognize all of the Gidwitz folks where she lived most recently, her friends, administrators, and staff who were so good to my mom over the past 2 years. She specifically asked me to thank you all for being her friend, for having patience with her, and also to tell you that she loved you. My mom was a lot. She was bigger than life. If you had ever spent 15 minutes with her, you would have gotten a sense of who she was and what she was about. In addition to being a wonderful, caring mother and grandmother, she was a friend to everyone. She was a strong-willed, tough, assertive, fun-loving, spontaneous, kind, sweet, and always the prettiest lady in the room. Surprisingly, for somebody so gregarious and outspoken, she was equally intensely private and guarded about herself and her personal life. She was not an open book. She was not sentimental about most things, and she did not live in the past. When asked about her childhood, which I did all the time, she would respond, "Why do you need to know? Who cares? It already happened." She lived in the present. She lived for today. So I guess just a quick timeline. So Aviva Ritzabi Luke was born June 11th, 1934, to a Yemenite father, Zacharia Ritzabi, and a Bulgarian mother, Rosa Rahavia, in Tel Aviv. She was the seventh of 8 children. The name Aviva translates to spring in English, symbolizing renewal, freshness, vitality, and new beginnings, which is the perfect description of what she was. Her father was a tailor, and her mother was a homemaker. When she was 3 years old, her mother died, giving birth to her youngest brother. Growing up without a mother and having a father, a tailor, times were quite challenging. She told me multiple times that nobody went hungry, but there was not much extra stuff to go around. For example, at bedtime, she needed to share a bed with one of her sisters. They slept head to toe. When she had a hole in her pair of shoes, she needed to take a piece of newspaper, fold it up, put it in her shoes, and all of a sudden she had brand new shoes. After high school, she joined the Army, after which she got a job as a telephone operator, which I think was her only job. Her father had since remarried and separated from his second wife, my mom's new stepmother. Her stepmother moved to New York, and shortly after, my mom's oldest brother suggested, "Why don't you go to New York to visit her?" After having a terrible time, a different cousin suggested, "Go to Chicago and visit a different cousin." While in Chicago, she was set up on a date with my dad, Arnold Luke, and the rest is history. Several months later, he proposed to her in 1962. I was born in 1965. Dina was born in 1968. 2006, my dad died. They were married for 44 years. My mom loved people and was loved by so many people. She loved to make friends. When Dina and I were kids, my parents took us to Israel maybe 7 or 8 times. We loved it. My mom at the time was the only family member who had left Israel for America. She was referred to as Aviva from America. They thought that in America, money grew on trees and the streets were paved with gold. And my mom married someone who drove a Cadillac. That was something. So when she would return to Israel to visit, it was quite an event. Everybody wanted to spend time with Aviva. Her father and all of her siblings were still living. And when we were there, we would move from home to home. We'd be wined and dined. People would do anything to spend time with my mother. She would stay up until 4 a.m., smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, reminiscing, and catching up with relatives and childhood friends that she hadn't seen for years. My dad, who did not speak or understand Hebrew, often joined them. Famously, I've been told, after being ignored for hours by the group, he yelled, "Stop speaking Chinese!" Followed by the only Hebrew phrase that he actually knew, "Ani rotzel lalechet habayta," I want to go home. And just over the years, way past that, I've been in my mom's presence many, many times. When she entered a room, as some of you might know, people with outstretched arms would go, "Aviva, Aviva is here." And she would change the whole dynamic of the room. She made friends easily. Often during conversations with a semi-stranger, she would say, "Give me your number. We should be good friends." And often they would exchange numbers and stay friends. She made so many friends over the years, but I don't think she really knew how many people adored her. Like the, like the names Oprah, Madonna, or Cher, just mentioning the name Aviva, people knew who you were talking about. At Gidwitz, the last place Mom lived, she tried to make the best of a difficult situation. She was independent until 2 years ago and cherished her freedom and fought not to give it up. While at Gidwitz, she knew everybody, residents, administrators, and the staff. She formed so many friendships. During meals, she would circulate from table to table to table, just talking to people and just trying to put a smile on their face. She was the unofficial welcoming committee and social chairwoman. Her energy at 91 years, she was 91 years old, was remarkable. Most importantly, she received the most joy making others happy and making sure that everybody was included. My mom loved her grandchildren, my 2 boys and Aiden, Dina's son. From the time my guys were toddlers until they started middle school, I would take them 2 to 3 times per month to visit her at the John Hancock Tower. Every time we arrived at her building, the boys would race to the elevator to push the button to the 61st floor. Upon arriving at the floor, the elevator doors would open, and they would sprint down the hallway to Safta's door to be the first to knock on the door. Zach, my oldest, typically got there first, leaving Max often crying and screaming in the back, screaming, "Not fair, Zach, you cheated." My mom would bend down, engulf them in her arms, and smother them with kisses and say, "They are delicious." She would tell me goodbye, and then, very tactfully telling me to get the hell out of there, and take them on a long, day-long excursion, maybe including a double-decker bus, Chicago River boat cruise, or a horse and carriage ride. Guaranteed stops at the Lego store, the Disney store, candy store, and ice cream shops. The boys would always come home with a bag filled with goodies. Safta never said no. One time at the end of a full day of adventure for the boys, I entered my mom's apartment to find Max, the youngest, sitting in front of the TV with a spoon, eating out of an entire quart of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. My other son, Zach, was eating a chocolate bar sandwich, basically a French bread loaf sliced down the middle with 2 chocolate bars in the middle. He was washing it down with a Diet Mountain Dew. I stared at my mom in disbelief, and all she said was, "It's my right as a grandmother. And if you don't like it, you don't have to bring them back." After all, she was a little girl trapped in a 75-year-old's body at the time. I guess I'll read the rest then. So my mom was a lady. One of my favorite memories of her was when I was a toddler. Our family lived in a traditional split-level home in a cul-de-sac in West Glencoe. When you entered the house, there were stairs that led down to the living room, kitchen, and dining room, and stairs that led up to the bedrooms. So if you walk up the stairs, my room was at the top of the stairs, their master bedroom was on the left-hand side, and my sister's was to the right. Several times a month, my parents would have date nights. At bedtime, a neighborhood kid would come babysit us while they went out on the town. I loved looking out of my doorway as they got ready to watch my parents get ready. My dad was very conservative and very low maintenance, typically sported a conservative business-style haircut and usually wore a black suit or slacks and a dress shirt to go out. My mom, who looked a lot like young Elizabeth Taylor, loved to get dressed up, and anybody who knew her knew that her attention to detail was immaculate. So from my room, I would watch my dad patiently wait with an admiring gaze and huge smile by the front door. He was impatient, and he never liked to be late, as my mom would try on outfit after outfit after outfit. She had whatever the happening, I'm sorry, I will slow down. She had the hairstyle of the day. If it was an updo or a beehive or a bob or like a that girl thing or whatever was trendy at the time. Perfect makeup, perfect nails. She would emerge from the bedroom, so to my right, walk to the mirror like she was walking the catwalk at a fashion show. She'd get up on her tippy toes and kind of do like a left and a right. She would catch her angle from every side. If unhappy, she would return back to her bedroom, try on another outfit, emerge again from the room, and do the catwalk again. When satisfied, she would spritz herself with a Chanel No. 5 or Sierra, put on her shoes, and they would leave. I loved it. In addition to being a loving, caring, supporting mom, she was the most beautiful lady I knew, and she was happy. Years later, I asked my dad how he could be so patient. My mom took forever to get ready. He said, "One day you'll understand. She's worth it." Until the end, my mom always made an impression. She loved to look pretty at all times from head to toe. And I just want to say, like, personally, my mom was my person. She was my confidant. I told her things I could never tell anybody else and always felt comfortable telling her. She was often disappointed by what I told her, but she never got angry, never held anything against me, and never judged. Whenever, wherever I was with her, that was my happy place. She made me feel comfortable. I could relax and exhale. I'm really going to miss her. The last couple of days, this is the end. The last couple of days of my mom's life, she required oxygen to breathe. We had short conversations. Dina was there. We all had conversations intermittently. Some of her last words were, "I had a great life. I love my friends. Be good to each other." And the last thing that she said to me was, "I love you." The outpouring of love from my mom has been incredible. I was completely unaware that she had made such a profound impression on so many people. I don't think she did either. One cousin who recently called said she was the light of her family. Many people said to me she was the brightest sunshine in their lives. So, Mom, if there is such a thing as heaven, I know you're there in the VIP section having a long-awaited reunion with all those who left before you. Dad, your husband of 44 years, whom you loved with all of your heart. Your cherished father and your mother, who you never really got to know. All of your brothers and sisters, specifically your oldest brother and your oldest sister, Avshalom and Naomi, and your youngest brother, Carmi. And I bet you can't wait to see your best childhood friends and all the others that have passed away over the years before you. And when it's my time, which I hope is many, many years from now, I hope you're the first one I see, because I miss you terribly. Mom, I love you.
So what I've got is just a tad bit shorter.
We are going
Like
to get out of here.
a tad bit shorter. Mom, Imashali, as I used to call her. I finally did it. I went shopping in your closet. I always loved your clothes on you, and you always wanted me to take them to enjoy at home. Well, today I'm wearing something of yours in your favorite color, red. You were the endless hostess. Graceful hands that fluttered and danced while creating tasteful delicacies everyone savored. You loved life, never forgot where you came from. How lucky am I to have had you as my mom. I will love you always, miss our daily talks, cherish our memories, and carry your love with me forever.
Midor Lador, from one generation to the next, we're now going to hear from two of her grandsons, Zachary and Max.
Not really sure where to start, because Softa was a huge part of my life through every moment. Some of my earliest memories are those that I had with Softa. From constant trips to the Lego store, to eating entire loaves of bread covered in nothing but Hershey's. Softa was the best grandmother I could ever ask for. She loved me unconditionally and always made sure that I was aware of it. From the earliest moments I can remember, Softa never walked into a room without making everyone aware of her presence and making someone smile. She left everyone wondering how she was so high energy, even up until the very end. She was the most wonderful, loving, beautiful, and selfless woman anyone could ever ask for. As I got older, it became really difficult to spend the amount of time with her that I did when I was younger, which was very difficult for the earlier years in college, since I had gotten to spend almost every other week with her for my entire life. And even multiple times a week at my youngest years. Watching her get older wasn't easy for her oldest grandchild, but I'm glad I never went more than just a few days without speaking to her. She always gave me advice, whether it was for school, my family, girlfriends, and so much more. She always told me to be patient and not push myself too hard, making sure I always knew whatever I was going through would work out, and that she was there to support me no matter the time of day or night. I'll always know that she was one of my biggest supporters and a huge part of who I've become. She was the best grandmother I could ever ask for. It's going to be incredibly hard not It's going to be incredibly hard not having you a phone call away anymore, Softa. I'll always cherish all the memories and the person you helped me become. I'll love you forever.
When I think about my Softa, the first thing that comes to my mind is that she never once felt old to me, even close to the very end. Not once. I didn't experience her as someone from a different generation. She didn't even really feel like my grandma. She honestly always felt more like a friend to me. She was always someone that I genuinely wanted to spend time with. A lot of my friends knew who she was, not because I constantly obsessively talked about her, but because in the stories I told, she was always very memorable. I think people who know her knew that. And the ones who met her, they remembered her. If they heard a story about her, it stuck. There was, like my dad said, something about her energy that just really seemed to stick with people. Some of my best memories are spending full days in the city with her. Like my dad said, we would take the bus around the city, even in her old age, walk around, go to the mall, shop, always get food at some of her favorite spots, doing whatever felt fun in the moment. We didn't really have an agenda. There was no rush on the day ever. She just wanted to be out with us in the outside world, just spending time with us, whatever it was. And I'm so grateful for all those times that we had. In the last few days, I've been thinking especially about a memory I have of her about 7 years ago, I guess when she was 84. She wanted to take me on a boat ride, just on one of our days together, just to see the Chicago skyline, like out on Lake Michigan. And we meant to buy tickets for like a chill ride where we would just look at it, take pictures, and talk. But we accidentally ended up, I think the company was Sea Dog, I don't know. Boat that splashes water and takes kind of sharp turns. And I can't imagine many grandmas really doing that, let alone enjoying it. I remember her screaming, and I have a 45-second collage of it that was made from the Photos app, and just watching that, I can just remember her screaming, "Aye!" But she enjoyed it. She really did. She laughed the entire time. And like I said, she just always felt young to me, and that's something that stands out to me most. Like being with her in that moment, I never once thought of her as old. And that's how she always was. Then even later on, when I saw her at Gidwitz, she had that same energy. Whenever I sat with her, like my dad said, people were always stopping by to say hi. She knew everyone, made it a point to talk to everyone. She didn't just stay in her seat. She checked on people. She would help people, push them around if they needed help. She was super caring, and she just wanted to connect with people, wanted to talk with them. One of the most outgoing people I've really ever known. And it was impossible to sit with her without seeing how much she meant to a lot of those around her. She was kind, generous, and always endlessly supportive to me. She always showed up. She gave me whatever I needed, always asked if I needed money, if I needed anything at all. She was very quiet about it and never expected anything in return, except for she would ask me to give her a call, which I always did, and I'm so grateful that I did. I saw it so many times how generous she was. She was truly rare, someone who could walk into a room and change the feeling of it just by being there. I think people of every age connected with her, and she honestly made, I think, my life and probably a lot of other people's life feel a lot more fun, more open, and warm. Safta, thank you for making life feel just a little bit lighter, for making every day together an adventure, and for loving all of us so fully. I'll carry you with me always.
I did not have the blessing of knowing Aviva, but after listening to her family share with me about her life, I understand that she always made an impression on everybody. That word stood out to me yesterday, and it came up again several times today. A wonderful, amazing impression at that. In the book of Genesis, our patriarch Jacob leaves his home in Beersheba to go up north to Haran to build a family. It's actually the first verse of Parashat Vayetze. Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Harana. And Jacob left Beersheba and he went to Haran. On the surface, there's nothing significant happening in this verse, but the rabbis dig deeper. For them, each word of the Torah, even each letter, is purposeful and tells a story. They wonder why the Torah reminds us that he left Beersheba. After all, we already knew that. We know that from reading the earlier passages. The Torah should have just said Jacob went to Haran. Why does it repeat that he left Beersheba? And here is Rashi on the verse. This demonstrates that when a righteous person leaves a place, it makes an impression. When a righteous person is in a city, he is its pride and glory. But when he leaves, so too, its pride and glory are diminished. In other words, the Torah tells us Jacob left Beersheba because his absence was deeply felt as soon as he left. And when he entered Haran, his presence was deeply felt as soon as he arrived. He just had that kind of impact. He made that impression. And so did Aviva Luke. Like our patriarch, Aviva too made a lasting, wonderful, deep impression on so many people. Her family, of course, but her friends as well. Friends who, to her, were a second family. And Aviva had so many friends. She left this impression, even when she just walked into a room, as we heard. Her presence was immediately felt, and people smiled. She and her late husband, Arnold, were married for 44 years, as we heard. They loved to travel together, especially to London, and they were equally invested in raising a loving family. Her son Paul loved watching her cook, among other things. Food was one of Aviva's love languages, by which she shared her love and generosity with family and friends. She made so many different kinds of dishes, specializing in comfort foods, sweet foods, and certain Yemenite Israeli dishes like jachnun. Paul always found her presence so deeply comforting, and he deeply admired that Aviva shared so much, never expecting to receive in return. Her daughter Dina cherished traveling together with her, especially to Israel again and again. And even though Aviva was the second youngest sibling, she was a bit of a matriarch of her Israel family. She lived in Israel for her first 20-something years before moving to the United States. As we heard, she served in the IDF, and I'm told she was very skilled with the gun. From her mother, Dina learned the importance of never forgetting where you come from. In Aviva's case, that was Israel, and she made a point of staying closely connected to her family in Israel for all these years. And her children and grandchildren always internalized that no matter what, Aviva loved them 100% and always had their back. Her children learned from her what generosity looks like, sharing clothes, home-baked food, and other things with people who need them, both at home and in Israel. Even if this meant sometimes Aviva gave away some of their clothes without their knowing it, and they're occasionally seeing them being worn around town. Dina's husband, Alan, will never forget the special moment the two of them shared when he asked her for her blessing in marrying her daughter, Dina. Aviva's excitement and enthusiasm about this meeting and then their marriage was so deeply moving and important to him. Beyond those special days, he recalls her youthful exuberance, her deep zest for life, and her one-of-a-kind signature laugh. It was a laugh that, if you heard it, you'll never forget it. One that made you smile, one that invited others to join and laugh along with the tone of her voice and her face when she made the laugh. It was just simply the best. Aviva loved her title as Savta to 3 grandsons, Zachary, Max, and Aiden. Max remembers traveling to visit special places. They would take photos around the city and go on boat rides downtown. Many of these visits involved trips to the mall, which is unsurprising given that shopping was her happy place. Purses, shoes, clothes, she could not get enough of these. She loved to acquire these things and then give them away. Zachary also treasured the time together, weekend visits on the 61st floor of that downtown apartment building. Together they would explore the city from their window with binoculars. They would check out Navy Pier and head to the mall, always stopping at the Lego store. And he was just amazed that she seemed to know someone who worked in every store that they visited. The brothers noted from an early age, Aviva always made other people happy. She was extremely outgoing and energetic. She was driven to be very connected to the people she loved, which was a lot of people. She had a lot to say, and she had her opinions also. Aiden, because he was the youngest grandson, did not know her in the exact same way, but he knew that she loved him so very much. The moments when she really shined were the holidays. So much cooking, so much baking, so much hosting. Those were big days for her family, as well as so many friends who were likewise invited. The house was always filled with company, always filled with love. Like Jacob, our ancestor, she made an impression as soon as she entered the room. And the Torah mentions his leaving Beersheba because his absence was palpable. And that's how we feel today. Aviva is missing from our lives now. We all feel smaller, emptier because of it. In Aviva's memory, I want to share a short teaching from the Talmud about what we learn from trees. This is because of her roots in Eretz Yisrael, as well as the family asking for memorial contributions to be made to JNF, Jewish National Fund, which historically has planted trees in the Holy Land. There's a story told about a teacher named Honi Hama'agel, Honi the circle maker. One day he was walking down a path in a forest, and he noticed an old man stooped over by the side, planting a tree. And Honi was puzzled, and he said, "Sir, what are you doing here?" And the man said, I'm planting this carob tree. And how long does it take for a carob tree to grow, to reach its peak maturity? 70 years, 70. And Honi was puzzled. Why are you planting this tree if you're not going to be here in 70 years? You're not going to eat its fruit enjoy its shade, sit against its trunk. Why? And the man looked at Honi and said, just as my ancestors planted for me, so I plant for my children. And Honi didn't quite understand this. He kept going, he walked down the path, he got a little tired, and decided to take a nap on the side of the road. And he woke up 70 years later, says the legend. And he turned around, you see this beautiful, verdant carob tree, and this young man next to it. He says, are you the man who planted this carob tree? The man answered, no, that was my grandfather. And only in that moment did Honi understand. He understood that we are the products of those who come before us, that we don't happen, that people invest in us, that people nurture us, that people grow us. And Aviva was one of those people. And the seed she planted became this wonderful family and became her wonderful friends. And we are the lucky ones. We are the ones who get to eat that fruit and sit in the shade and rest along the trunk. And this gives some optimism for the day that even though she is gone, that her influence and her memories stay with us and continue forward always. Yehi Zikra Baruch, may her memory forever be a blessing. Amen. I invite you to rise, please, if you're able, as I continue with the El Maleh Memorial Prayer. El Maleh Bachamim Shochen Bamramim Hamitzeh Menucha Nechona Tachar Chanchei Shechina B'Malot Kedoshim U'Teorim K'Zorah Harakim Asivim Et Nishmat Aviva Bat Zechariah Feroza Shel Ha'hala Olamaha Began Eden Tehem Nukatach Ana Bar Harachamim Hastireha Betzetek Nafeh Halamim U'Tzror B'Zolim Nishmatach Adonai Hu Naharatach V'Tanu B'Shram Amishkavach V'Namar Amen. Emily Rachamim, exalting and passionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Aviva Bat Zechariah Feroza, Aviva Luke, who is gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at West Lawn Cemetery, located at 7801 West Montrose in Norridge. The family will be returning to the Luke Borick residence. Please note the address in Highland Park and the Shiva times and memorial contributions to the Jewish National Fund. All that information can be found on the service folder, and for those of you who are watching via live stream, that information can be found on the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving in the procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. At this time, I invite those of you who have been asked to serve as pallbearers to please come forward as we escort the casket of Aviva Luke, or should I say Mayor Aviva, from the chapel, and then everyone can return to their cars.